What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Conscious Report. Today we are discussing the third parties, extra parties. You know those other parties that aren't allowed into the presidential debates, those parties you're not really taught about exist anymore in history class, the parties who are ignored by the mainstream media, the parties who aren't funded by large corporations, yeah, those guys. Recently, we've been seeing these presidential debates, which are a freaking joke. Both these guys are twins, Obamni. You guys know the story by now. They're the same guy. And meanwhile, we've got Gary Johnson, who is going to be on the ballot in all 50 states, and he's polling, I think, over 6%. And whether you like him or not, he was until recently. He was qualified to be in those debates. He's being ignored. Also, Jill Stein, the Green Party presidential candidate, and the Justice Party presidential candidate, Rocky Anderson, as well. And there's others beyond them. Also, Vermin Supreme, who some of you have seen me talk with in the past, who are ignored by the mainstream. Recently, though, as these debates are going on, Amy Goodman of Democracy Now!, she had another debate going on between Rocky Anderson and Jill Stein, answering the same questions that President Obama and Mitt Romney were discussing. And also NPR, on All Things Considered, they had a debate between Jill Stein and Gary Johnson. So some alternative media outlets are reaching out and trying to give the third parties a voice, because it's important. As we discussed in the other video, first of all, I have my own opinions about whether or not voting even is necessary in the presidential race, but if you choose to vote in that race, it's important to be aware that there are other parties, and it's also important to be aware of the way they're being treated. So remember, we can continue to vote in these elections, which in my eyes still legitimizing them. We legitimize these elections, but you vote your conscience, and so you go third party. And again, we hope that by 2016, 2020, 2024, 2028, that's one of these years we're going to get 30 or 40%, and at some point in the next, whatever, we will actually get the election taken. And it's not that I don't believe in working, being forward thinking, because I definitely believe in that, and working towards a goal in the future. It's just that this machine is not built to change from within. I know that's the philosophy for many people, and I still work, one foot in the matrix, one foot out, working to help people, show them local candidates, and even highlight by interviewing Gary Johnson, interviewing Jill Stein, Vermin Supreme, and these others, to show you, hey, there are other people out there that are at least trying to get their voices heard. And this morning here in Houston, Jill Stein was here, and she was speaking at the last organic outpost where the Houston Freethinkers have our garden. And now, after hearing Ron Paul speak and trying not to throw up when I'm listening to Obama and Romney, and hearing Gary Johnson speak and interviewing him, and hearing Jill Stein speak, I see that there's a couple of good people there. There's some that I don't trust at all. And there's a lot of good ideas, and there's a lot of horrible ones. I don't believe in the presidency itself, but even with people like Jill Stein and people like Gary Johnson, who know that they're not going to win, but still are out there working, tirelessly, traveling, speaking to people, trying to inspire hope, and do these things, I appreciate them. More power to them. But they can't do it. They're not going to be able to make things change in the way we're looking for. The presidential election is not going to change your life. The presidential election in this country is largely fixed, and the two candidates support the same people. They're bought off by the same people. We're going to go in the same direction. Maybe the tactics they use might differ to some degree, but the end game is going to be the same. So it doesn't matter. What we can focus on, what we can work on is, and this is one thing that Jill Stein did talk about, and I commend her for this as well, is we can start building locally more than ever. A lot of these videos are going to continue to focus on the community and the importance of this, because this is where we have our strength. We need to recognize the power of the individual and to be the change, lead by example. And you know, if you've got to run for office on a local level, some people got to do that job, and if that's what you dedicate your time to, then more power to you. And those of you out there, then support them if you can and vote locally in that way. But also take the steps in your personal life to healing yourself and forgiving those who have hurt you, and forgiving yourself, and doing that personal inner work, and really thinking about and questioning your beliefs, and challenging them, and seeing if you're ready to exist and create a world where we can coexist voluntarily for mutual benefit, voluntary association, and the non-aggression principle, and just being there and just helping each other out. But it has to start from within. So, you know, third parties, we gotta keep pushing and knowing that there are other people out there. I don't think the presidential election is going to change things. Look into third party no matter what the race is. If it's a local race for constable or for sheriff or for school board or whatever it may be, that's really where you're going to affect change. We can't forget about our brothers and sisters who are struggling in places all around the world, and just down the road, and in another city, and in another state, and all this. But we can't help them until we can help ourselves. So learn to find that change that you're seeking by looking outside the mainstream, by pushing past those the two-party dictatorship, by looking to the third party. Use that same inspiration, that same drive to look within yourself and to create that change within yourself. And continue to do that, continue to let that shine out, let that reflect, and that change will spread. And ultimately, that's the best thing that we can do, is to create one improved unit into society, for us to push to be the change and encourage others, and it will spread. And we won't need third parties, we won't need presidents, we won't need the government. We will be creating a stateless society based on voluntary cooperation, the non-aggression principle, and freedom for all people. It's possible. We just got to do it. Stop waiting for others to do it. If you can hear this, you are the resistance.
Essential to vote third party in order to move us forward. So one thing, you know, if we, right now we're at 2% and we've been coming out in the polls. So our hope is to continue pushing that. If word starts to get out, we have the potential to get possibly to 5%. It's very hard to do that, and we shouldn't be disappointed if we don't. But that is one of the goals, is to get to 5%. If we do that, we're automatically on the ballot. Right now, you have to spend 90% of your campaign just fighting to have a voice, just fighting to get on the ballot. That's what we've been doing for the past year, is getting on the ballot. And to thanks to all of you and people around the country, we are on the ballot for 85% of voters in this election who will have a choice in this election. But what we're trying to do now in the remainder is to reach out and get the word out. If we can get the word out to even a fraction of those 36 million students who do not have a future, who are indentured servants, or to those millions of families who are headed for foreclosure, for whom there's been no relief from this administration, even though they had hundreds of billions of dollars to buy up these mortgages and negotiate to keep people in their homes, they wouldn't do it. Or to help 1 out of every 2 Americans who's basically in poverty or low income now, or the people who are trying to survive as small organic farmers. We should have a farm bill that prioritizes organic farming and community farms and small farms. All of these things we can be doing. If we can get the word out to those people who want to do it, we could easily get to 5% and beyond. So that's what we're trying to do with the remainder of the time. And everybody here can make a huge difference by getting on our Facebook, by getting on Twitter, getting the word out to your network, getting our newsletter, which you can use to propagate to your networks, by liking, sharing, and reposting every day. We could build to 5%. If we get to 5%, we're automatically on the ballot. We hit the ground running. We can run real campaigns, whether they are for city council or for mayor or for legislature. And the Green Party has wonderful candidates that are running at all levels of Texas government coming up in this election. And then going into the next one, we'll be having a debriefing after this and a chance for everybody to give their input. But the thinking at this point is that it might make most sense to be targeting city councils to actually bring people up at that level of government in the races we can win that help build the organization and the network so we can keep building going forward. Great. So stay in touch. We are in the process right now of forming a Latino caucus within the Green Party, also a student caucus. We are forming campus green chapters so that the different campuses can actually have Green Parties on site to bring the voice of students to the forefront of the Green Party, as well as the voice of the immigrant community and the voice of the communities of color, so that they are front and center, and the voice of labor, all the major groups of people who've been shut out of politics as we know it. We're bringing that to the forefront in the party so that we together can forge our plan and our strategy going forward to empower all of us. Thank you. Thank you. Great to meet you. Yeah, thanks so much.
And, well, very basically, the message that I'm sending, I think, is the same as that of Ron Paul's. I think Ron Paul's candidacy here is going to officially come to an end in a couple of weeks. So who then becomes the spokesperson for the liberty and freedom movement? Well, it would be the Libertarian nominee for president, who happens to be me. I am going to be one of 3 candidates on the ballot in all 50 states, which I think is really important here. There are other third-party candidates, but nobody's going to achieve this 50 ballot access. So when I go forward, I'm going to be talking about my voice as compared to Barack Obama's, as compared to Mitt Romney's. But I'm the only candidate that doesn't want to bomb Iran. I'm the only candidate that wants to get out of Afghanistan tomorrow, bring the troops home. I'm the only candidate that wants to end the drug wars. I'm the only candidate that wants to repeal the Patriot Act. I would have never signed it in the first place. I'm the only candidate that wants to repeal. I would not have signed the National Defense Authorization Act. I'm the only candidate that is promising to submit a balanced budget in the year 2013. That's a $1.4 trillion reduction in federal spending. And the reason that we need to do this is we're going to find ourselves in the midst of a monetary collapse as a result of borrowing and printing money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending. I'm proposing eliminating income tax, corporate tax. I'm proposing to abolish the IRS and replace all of that with one federal consumption tax. In this case, I am embracing the fair tax, which I think is a template to zero taxes. I think it reboots the American economy. I think in a zero corporate tax rate environment, if the private sector doesn't create tens of millions of jobs, I don't know what it takes to create tens of millions of jobs. It ends up being cost neutral. It bleeds all existing non-transparent taxes out of goods and services. So it's really the answer when it comes to American exports, making American exports 23% more competitive for exports. Of course, imports would be subject to this consumption tax. I'm also the only candidate that would sign legislation to ban or eliminate the Federal Reserve. I'm the only candidate that would repeal legal tender laws. I'm the only candidate that would sign legislation allowing for competing currencies. Look, Federal Reserve is an inside job. They're loaning money to banks. It's our money. They're loaning it at 0%. Are they loaning it to us? No, they're turning around and buying treasuries in this closed loop. And really, just this Ponzi scheme that is unsustainable. So, big differences between me and the other 2 candidates. I think it's too important right now to not be that voice, if you will. I'm arguing that I'm not the third choice. I'm arguing that I'm the only choice.